So thanks to the BW World team, first of all, for organizing such an amazing event. So I'm feeling very excited and happy to share. We have more than 100 years of experience in the field of finance and leadership on the stage today. And the eminent panelist brings the experience from the field of aviation, hospitality, real estate, healthcare, BPO, IT, consulting, etc. So we have a very diverse experience, more than 100 years on the stage. We have all seen extreme events unfold in last 2 to 3 years, starting from pandemic, then supply shortages, the demand softness, IT industry facing challenges. And with all these, uh, these unforeseen events posed financial challenges in the form of cash flow issues, then maybe, moving to component prices going up, then let's say demand going down, sales impacted, and, many more. So why we are discussing so? I mean, as a finance leaders. So we all know, I mean, over the years, our role as a CFO is not only to protect or safeguard the financial. So I typically call it as I mean, we have moved from 1P to 4Ps, which as per me, let's say the first P is to partner, which is the role of a strategic CFO. Second P is the protect, which is the role of a traditional CFO. The third P is the people, which is to build and team and the culture. And the fourth P is the problem solving. So, that's where, we come into the picture handy, that we are not only supposed to protect, but to strategize and solve the problem as well. With that, I move to the topic for the day today, which is, as a finance leader, as a community here, how we can strategize and, solve these unforeseen challenges, face these unforeseen challenges, and protect the financials for the company. So I would like to have a quick, uh, question with the eminent panel we have here. You know, last 2 3 years, many problems, many things we have faced in their respective companies, and how these challenges has been tackled. How the strategies has helped to keep them afloat. So maybe I'll start with Mr. Arvind, to share a quick thought.
Hi, hope I'm audible. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me on this panel. Thank you, thanks a lot. I think this is very relevant question nowadays because the world has seen in last 2 3 years it has seen the kind of a situation which was completely unpredictable, and it could have it has a massive impact of the regular or a normal kind of a business thinking. And this has actually involved not only CEOs, because typically it was seen as a CEO job to keep on thinking about how best the business can be taken forward. But I think the all CXOs, not only CFOs, but all the CXOs, be it CHRO, be it CTO, or be it CRO, I think everyone is now are getting aligned to think that what need to be done in future in these kind of very unpredictable circumstances. And this actually brings the CFOs who are more aligned to the strategic thinking, more closely related to the numbers, etc. But now they are also going into the quality of revenue, the stickiness of the revenue, the quality of the customers, the quality of the geography that they need to be in. So I think all those factors now are becoming the role of everyone, including the CEO, and to provide an insight that, okay, what is that as a business that we need to do, and keep thinking that what we are doing currently can be completely shaken up tomorrow for different uncontrollable factors. When you keep on thinking on those lines, you keep on giving more control or a more attention to the enterprise risk management function, which in our earlier days, if I need to be honest, was used to be more theoretical function. But now the enterprise risk management is coming on the forefront to give a more realistic attention that what kind of a risk that we are sitting on, be it technology disruption, be it regional disruption, or be it any kind of these kind of situations. I think more and more proactiveness is will be helping more to the organizations.
I'll move to Mr. Sameer to share, some of the challenges that he has faced in last couple of years, and how the strategy has helped, company to overcome that.
Yeah, hello everybody. So I think in today's world, we live in an era of business disruption. new business models keep emerging, new industries start coming up, the old ones get kicked out. So even if you were to leave COVID aside and just the last 2 3 years, the average length of your business has gone down, and unless you diversify, you will not remain in business. I always say earlier there were two type of companies, big and small. Now there are two type of companies. You're either fast or slow. And strategy has to change so fast, and unless you are nimble enough to be able to adapt to the changing environment and hence change your strategy, you will not remain in business. I think as CFOs, we are uniquely positioned because we have a bird's eye view of the entire company, the entire industry, the country, and the globe at large. And all of these are interlinked. There is nobody better than us to see what will be the impact of supply chain disruption. There is nobody better than us to see that there is a mismatch of talents, demand versus supply. So we have to take the lead in terms of telling all our colleagues, including the CEO, including our stakeholders, especially shareholders. And I think what has worked for us in Agilent is the fact that we always have a plan B and a plan C, and we are always in touch. Our job is to catch a trend, and a trend is your friend. And how we catch a trend is we're looking at not only our own financials, real time online, but also the financials of the competition. Also looking at how my product life cycle is going, because the first warning signal I have is the end of that particular product. So are they asking more discounts? Is something else coming out in the market which is signifying that this product is obsolete? How much of money do I invest in R&D? So strategic planning is for you to make sure that you look at your numbers, compare those numbers with the competition, and even on a standalone basis, convert that into a story, be very honest, call a spade rather than a shovel in disguise, and take it to your board. Speak with all your employees. We folks in finance sometimes have a habit of speaking only with finance folks. In office, I will never be seen having coffee or at a water cooler with finance folks. I want to speak with the sales guy. I want to speak with the production guy. I want to speak with the marketing guy. These are the guys who tell me what's going to happen in the future. They know it, but they can't articulate it. So I have to ask them relevant questions and then change my strategy.
Thanks, sir. I mean, a lot of good facts like the trend is your friend,
Friend is your friend.
then
Catch it early.
diversify, and many more things. So with that, I'll move to Mr. Pankaj to quickly share maybe his thoughts.
Thanks, Dinesh, and hello, everybody. When I look at some of the challenges that we faced at Interglobe, by the way, just as a group introduction, we are into aviation, that's Indigo Airlines, and we got a large hospitality business, and technology and pilot training, etc. The point is, everything is in the adjacency of travel, hospitality, tourism, etc. And I cannot really imagine any other industry that's seen so much disruption during COVID as we did, because you don't do contingency planning for businesses kind of revenue going down by 95%. So that's the kind of disruption that kind of we had to face. Moving forward, what could be the disruption? I really don't know. I can crystal ball gaze. I have no clue. But all I can say is that with what's happening on the macro political landscape, what's happening, to the currencies, and the recession being talked about, the technology disruption happening, customers' preferences changing, and so on. You pick it, and I think the key is that you just have to address things as they come. I'll just say, Dinesh, that unforeseen is the only foreseen, and but what it is, it will manifest itself as we move along. So I really, when I look at that experience that we faced, honestly, strategy doesn't work. It's useless. What do you do with it? However, I think strategy still has a very important role, because at the end of the day, it's just about, hey, I got a goal, and how do I go about doing business to achieve that goal? But it's like drawing kind of a path on the sand dunes, and a couple of hours is changed, and you have to kind of draw a new path. You just need, you know, where you want to go, but you know that path's gonna change. What it does, I think, to me, with as a learning is, it just at least gives you a barometer. It gives you a yardstick. You say, okay, well, hell, you know, things have changed so radically that what do I do? And and I think a couple of things can happen. I mean, even if you look at on a steady state, you may have a situation where things are working in line with your strategy and fantastic. Life is good. My only caveat there is, do check the macro landscape and see, is it just the tailwinds that's pushing the business, and therefore you should be in an even better place, and therefore while you're meeting your strategic objectives, are you still in a way behind? That's the only thing. The other thing that can happen is you're not meeting your strategic objectives. Now, again, I mean, it could be one of the two things. One is that, just need to tweak the operational processes, structure, training, customer delivery, maybe improvise on technology or whatever, I mean, and get back to track. Or, your strategy doesn't work anymore and you just need to kind of revisit it. And, all I'll say is that one needs to be nimble enough. I think gone are the days when, there's this group of entitled folks who do strategy once a year and then disappear and expect that the world's not going to change. That's not the business reality. It's just something that needs to be revisited on a daily basis.
I think, yeah, the key factors that comes, from all three of you, I mean, maybe is the acceptability of the fact that these unforeseen challenges may happen, has happened, and will happen in future. And accordingly, we'll have to work towards this with more transparency and more collaborative effort. With that, maybe a quick view from Mr. Vikash, the challenges that you may have faced in last 2, 3 years, and then we'll move to next question.
Thanks, Dinesh. And before I answer your specific question, I would like to add what Samir said. And I keep on saying, either you disrupt yourself or somebody else will going to disrupt you. And that's the harsh reality of today's world. The business life cycles have shrunk so short that you need to be agile, you need to be nimble and keep on thinking what's next. To answer your specific question, uncertainty in the last 3 years, frankly, if I look back when COVID hit us, being in real estate sector, there was an internal feeling that possibly after down cycle of real estate started in 2015, then demonetization, then GST, RERA, the ILFS crisis, and then COVID, we said probably this is the last nail in the coffin. But we were very, very clear in our mind that what our strategic objectives are, what our goals are, and how do we stay focused on that. And that's where we took certain calls, even in those tough situations, that while we cut down on a lot of other priorities, but we said on our long-term priorities, which is aligned to our objective, we'll continue to invest, which is one was keep on building our brand and keep on building the technology, which helped us accelerating our growth. And today we've kind of achieved the number one position in the market on the back of that strategy. It could have fallen flat on our face because if we continued to investing and if things wouldn't have panned out, then we might have gone out of the business possibly. And that's where the success metrics plays a very, very important role. When you take certain path, you need to have clear success metrics and you keep on evaluating, are you on the right track or not? And that's where being agile helps, that if you're not on the right track, I was hearing the panelist in the earlier panel that you need to know when you need to pull the plug. So these are the things which helps you, and that's what helped us, frankly, in the last 3 years of uncertain times.
Thanks, Vikash, for sharing this. I was discussing outside with you also. With so many uncertainty over last 6, 7 years, keeping a company afloat and having a leadership position is amazing journey. With that, I'll move next question to you only. So, while developing a strategic plan to address unforeseen financial challenges, how do you balance your short-term priorities, which are more tactical, with your long-term strategies, objectives, and what factors should be taken into consideration when making these decisions?
Interesting question, Dinesh. I think any strategic plan, there has to be a good balance between short-term priorities and long-term objectives. But I think before that, what is more important is how do you have clear alignment within the organization about what your short-term priorities are and what your long-term objectives are. Does everyone sees a long-term objective as long-term objective? Because sometimes people who are running those objectives, they see it as very, very immediate, short-term deliverable and short-term focus. And that's where that alignment, that how does these objectives or these priorities helps the business in the longer run. This is super critical. So I'll share my example. So internally what we do, we follow a framework for that. So we have a CET framework, which is core, extend and transform. So any initiative which we run internally needs to be clearly bucketized in this CET framework. Anything which impacts my BAU, which is my business as usual, needs to be bucketized as core. Anything which helps me extend my business as usual to the immediate adjacencies, that gets classified as extend. And anything which is kind of a blue sky thinking or disruption, or how do we think business very differently, that gets bucketized under transform. Once you have that clarity, you do capital allocation in each of these three buckets. And that is where, when these unforeseen financial challenges hit you, you know that what the possible financial implication of these challenges are on each of this bucket, because you need to protect your business as usual, because that is the bucket which helps you keep on reinvesting into either extend or transform, right? And that is where it is important to also understand that how these financial challenges will going to impact your long-term strategy or long-term objectives, whether it is falling under extend or transform, and you decide how much capital allocation, or you want to kind of slow down the investment in a particular bucket. That's critical. The second important thing in terms of short-term and long-term objective is again the internal alignment. Whenever you make certain decisions, it's important to go back to the people, explain why you're making certain decisions, because taking those decisions in a closed room doesn't help unless you have complete alignment among the organization, among different departments. So that is also important, which helps you balance your short-term priorities and long-term objectives.
Thanks, Vikash. And as you rightly just touched upon on the alignment, I will add, I would like to ask Mr. Pankaj also that, how do you ensure that all stakeholders within the organization are aligned with the strategic plan to address unforeseen financial challenges? And what communication strategy do you find most effective in achieving those? So, we all touched upon that topic, but we should just like to elaborate that maybe.
Yeah. Thanks, Dinesh. So, Dinesh, I think, if we are in a situation where we're looking at kind of aligning the internal stakeholders on a strategic plan, then there's a fundamental problem to start with. And I don't think that alignment is even possible, because really, you think about it. I think, we should demystify this whole strategic plan thing. As I said, it's just about, hey, how do we get together and do business? And I don't think any group within a business has the prerogative or the exclusivity to figure that out. And if you do that in isolation, chances are, which is highly unlikely, that even if you come to the right answer, nobody's going to buy that in. It's just human nature, first of all. And so the key is really, the starting point has to be it sales, marketing, technology, business, operations, customer-facing folks, every area of the business collaborate and come together and say, you know what, how are we going to conduct business? We know what the goal is, and how do you go about it? And if you've done that, there is no need for alignment. Now, however, having said that, I think where the finance folks can come in, absolutely, is to bring everybody together, be the bridge, kind of get everybody together on the table. Because I think one core strength that finance has and should use is that we can see end-to-end implications. So we can break silos. We can just say, well, that may be a fantastic thing to do possibly from a production side of view, but it has certain other implications, et cetera, and kind of, how do you do that? I think the other element in the communication is that, the reality will manifest in a very different way, because there's so many macro changes, and sharing those implications, those results, and not just by silo to say that, here is the output for your particular area, but across the business and the implications needs to be shared, because then everybody has a buy-in collectively on the common goal vis-a-vis just their own function. And and therefore one can reinvent as you move along, in a very coherent manner. Now, as pertains to the external stakeholders, of course, there are the banks and the financial institute, there's the stock market, and the wider audience, and your vendors and suppliers. There, I think it's just about explaining the trends, explaining why things are different from what we envisaged, explaining what has changed and what are we doing as a business, and how do you dissect those trends to explain that why the business is still on track, and how we're going to address those issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I think very important. And, I think collaboration is something which is given, which is part of the value system of the every company. And as you mentioned rightly, I mean, I think finance has a very important role now to be part of this culture building exercise within the organization. Yeah, with that, I'm moving on to the next question to Mr. Arvind. Yeah. So, Mr. Arvind, the next question, is, once we have the strategic plan in place, the very important is to have a clear measure of the success of the plan, and what KPIs or metrics do you use to measure the success of the plan, and how do you adjust these metrics with the dynamic situation if the plan needs to be modified?
So thanks, Dinesh. So I think more than the KPI, if you ask me, I mean, there can be KPIs that we all regularly monitor, that's fine. And we can always develop a robust enterprise risk management, that what are the things that we need to keep in. But if you ask me, frankly, when you ask me this KPI, I think more than the KPI, there are 2-3 actions which straight away come to my mind, which need to be done. One is, of course, being proactive. When I say being proactive, you really need to be, nowadays, you really need to be, having a very focused eye on all your geographies that you're working on, the political scenario even in those geographies which you're working on. All kind of changes are happening throughout the world where you're present. All kind of a technology disruption, as we have been speaking, I think a lot has been already said. What kind of a technology disruption which is coming, which technology that you're dependent on, which business, what portion of your business is dependent on which technology, and what kind of a disruption which is coming there. Not only that, now there is a strong need of also being focused into key development even at your customer level. There can be certain M&A initiative that is happening at the customer level, or the key strategic changes which are directionally there. So maintaining a very, a very solid line, or a very regular, so to say, a line of relationship with the customers to keep on knowing that what is happening there is also equally important. So being proactive, I think, in every key area is one thing. Second action, I think, is nowadays we all are realizing, hire or build a team which is better than you. I think we all understand this, but I saw that it's not been that way focused. We do hire people based on the need of the time. I think here is a time when we need to really give a lot of thought process, especially when you are hiring the leadership, or especially when you are hiring the people who really need to take decisions. Because in the time of difficulties, I think these are the brains that are going to give you right advices, what it need to be. And last but definitely not the least is the use of technology, because technology is so fast changing that it can actually outpower you, or kind of just completely take you out of the business if you are not very proactive in time. So nowadays we are all talking about ChatGPT. You never know, here's a tool that we are talking about replacing Google. All right, here's a tool which can give you an answer in a human form, maybe now in a text form, but who knows, going forward, it can be even audio, or it can be verbal. Very soon you will see also kind of a robots which are talking like that and answering you like humans. So all these kind of things you need to keep in mind, and you need to think at least 5 years down the line that what is going to happen. So if I think these 3 things are being taken care well, all those regular kind of KPIs itself can support, what is going to disrupt or what is going to change.
Thanks, Arvind. Moving on to Mr. Sameer. My question next to you is, what is your approach to contingency planning, and how do you ensure that your strategic plan accounts for a range of possible scenario, including best case, worst case, and most realistic?
See, I think, as I said earlier, we live in an era of business disruption. So contingency has to be there.
Yeah.
And I think only those companies which had a reasonably robust contingency or a BCP did better during COVID times. The basic principles of business were turned upside down. And you have to be nimble. You have to be a fast thinking company. For that, you need to have the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. The unlearning part is so difficult that most of us in finance are reasonably rigid. And we need to break that shackle. And I think he was just talking about the quality of people. I believe skills is something which we can learn, which means the people who we hire can learn and I can also learn. But will is something which you can't change. So I hire more for will, less for skill. Not that there is zero skill. And skill is something which is very, very unique. It has got a huge, you know, it's got a huge linkage to the company where you work. Your skill, the same skill can be very, very successful in company A, but not in my company. So contingency is something which will happen, has happened over the years. You need to have first a vision that you will survive that. You need to have confidence. And for that, your emotional intelligence is more important than anything else. Teamwork, the ability to listen to all stakeholders. One of the stakeholders I go to often is my board and the analysts which cover my stock. Because a lot of board members are common to that particular industry, and so are the analysts. So obviously I go there to learn from them and not tell them what is in my mind. But the more you see what is happening around you, gives you insights, and then you bounce it off within your own company, whether it will work. So contingency planning has to be done on a daily basis. You get the early warning signals. Earlier I said a trend is your friend. Look at your data differently. Learn the art of storytelling, because I have understood it. How do I go and teach my sales guy? How do I teach my production guy that your gross margins are very low? Why is it the competition has a higher gross margin yet have a lower operating margin? So I want to have a higher gross margin and a higher operating margin and a better cash flow. So the storytelling part is very, very important. I think most CFOs are able to pinpoint where really is the lacuna, or where is it that the next contingency could hit me. But can they go and tell that story? Will people buy that story? Create your bridges. And the second part of the question you had was what? Sorry, I forgot. The contingency, and what do you do if you don't?
Various scenarios analysis. Best.
So again, in contingency planning, we always have a plan A, plan B, plan C. So for example, I manufacture equipments which test the composition of any solid, gas or liquid in the world. Now, if people don't have money to buy those machines, which probably they don't because interest rates are rising all over the world, I need to concentrate more on my aftermarket business, which is to service those machines, to sell the consumables, spare parts. So I start emphasizing on those. So I train my sales guys to do both. I kind of reinvent methods to kind of give a discount to those technicians who can help my end customer service the machines on their own through video conference. I can change the incentive compensation structure. I can change the way they are rewarded. So various things I have to put on the table, get the blessings of my colleagues, so that whatever is the problem and whatever is the best remediation happens, and it happens with some kind of a stake in the ground. It is very, very important. In fact, now what has happened in COVID is, it's a unique problem. My revenue obviously didn't grow too much, but my profits grew because I cut costs like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And once I've cut my costs and I have such high profitability, this year I can't say that my profitability will come down, right? It's a unique thing. So I taught all my customers to service their machines under my technician's supervision over a video call. And now I've trained the technician to do a simultaneous video call with 4 customers, create videos. So you have to be innovative and be ready. Learn the art of storytelling. That's something which I think has helped me personally very well. If I have to be accepted as a business leader, if people have to listen to me in my own company, I need to speak their language. I need to come down to their level. and come back at a 38,000 feet where I belong.
Thanks, sir. And I think the very important point that I pick is the challenging status quo, that attitude, which I was talking about, the fourth P, the problem solving, and which comes from innovation and challenging status quo. What we have been doing may not work during these pandemic times. Ultimately, somebody has to be nimble, agile, and adapt to the scenario and look for more innovative ways to solve
And
the problem.
calm.
And calm,
See, the problem sometimes is we get hyper, finance people get hyper. I mean, there is no black and white. I know there is black and white, but I have to approach it through shades of gray. I have to be empathetic. That is why I need to start engaging with my own internal company stakeholders much in advance. I can't be sleeping. I cannot spend more time on just analyzing the numbers. I need to start telling the story, start giving a heads up. So, calmness.
I know the types of, I'll just take 30 seconds. I think absolutely, you was talking about will and skill, and the further point within the will itself actually is attitude. So the finance people, as you rightly said, Samir, that they are typically known for their arrogance, typically known for their, just to the point. I think when the finance people start thinking about the whole business and being very empathetic and being sympathetic and being very, soft skills driven, I think the whole game can change for them. That's absolutely.
we have, time is up, but I would like to take one line from each one of you, maybe as a rapid fire, quickly to add, to summarize the entire topic. We start with you.
I'll just say something similar to what Pankaj mentioned. You should be clear about your strategic objectives, but roadmap will keep on evolving. So be nimble and be agile.
I'll just say create a culture of innovation in your organization that serve us well.
I'll say my job is to make every employee in my company a finance employee. Teach them finance so that I become redundant.
No, absolutely. I think being proactive and being proactive actually can solve the problems is something which I feel.
With that, we'll wrap up the session.